So today's video I'm going to tell you something which is probably the reverse of what you have been told by many people. And many people would have told you that you should publish a lot, especially when you are a PhD student or a young faculty. And this is also translated into the saying publish or perish. Now I will tell you that while this is important for people who have published too less, that is maybe 1 or 2 journal papers, there is a problem if you have published too much, especially if you are a PhD student or if you are a new faculty. And this is because of the essential black hat nature of the selection committee process, and also the selection committees of not only promotion situations but also people who give fellowships, prizes and so on. And essentially these people may have done their PhD 20 or 30 years before, and they seem to think that the number of publications today should be the same as what they had done. So these people may have published 4 to 5 journal papers when they did their PhD. And I have seen that if you have published more than twice this number, then these people start getting perturbed when they see these particular CVs. And then a lot of black hat thinking comes from members of this committee, which cast aspersion on the qualities of the research, on the possibility that there may be mistakes, about the fact whether the candidate has comprehended all the work they have done. Maybe they have done only a small fraction of the work and most of the work was done by the senior scientists, the postdocs, the research scientists, the PhD supervisor and so on in that particular list. And also there is an increased scrutiny of the people who have written the paper. If they find that any postdoc is there in the list, then aspersions are cast on the PhD student. If the concept belongs to the postdoc and the student has been just doing some computer programming and basic work. So these are some of the things you need to keep in mind. Now one more thing people look at is whether you have been doing salami slicing, which is essentially the art of taking a particular concept and extracting a large number of papers from it. So probably this concept could be communicated to people in 2 or 3 papers, but the people may have written 6 or 7 papers by doing minor perturbations on each theme. So maybe the first paper used a polynomial basis function, the second paper put in some extra terms in terms of trigonometric functions to this polynomial function. A third paper came along, they added some more terms. Fourth paper maybe did a comparative study between polynomial functions and trigonometric functions and so on. So many of these things which could have been probably published with one paper are sometimes expressed in many papers, and this also is looked on negatively by the different committee people. Now, what are the things which you can do to mitigate this particular situation? So one of the things I would say is that do not put all your eggs in one basket, which is in the list of publication. So whenever you have a list of publication, this is just one of the measures which people look at you, and therefore try to see all the different measures. So let us start with the CGPA. So the CGPA should be good because that shows that the person's basic background is good. The next thing is that if you have published a few papers, then you should try to get some prizes or fellowships out of these papers, because these essentially show the committee that a different committee has also selected you, and therefore there is a certain logic in committees is that if a previous committee has given you a prize, then it is easier for this new committee to also give you a prize. So this is again linked with that particular Matthews phenomena, where if you have succeeded once, you tend to succeed more and more. So again, if you have published a few papers, try to look out for any possible fellowships, awards which you may get, and these may include something very small, such as a funded travel grant, such as a Greek society based prize or something like that. And there are many such grants out there, and you need to do a little bit of search and aspire for some of these fellowships and grants. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that if you have got a decent set of papers, instead of continuing to publish more and more papers, try to use it to get a postdoctoral fellowship in a reputed university, or do a reputed postdoc such as a Humboldt fellowship or a Fulbright fellowship or a JSPS fellowship or something like this. So what happens with these fellowships also is there is one more committee, and if this committee has perused your CV has looked at your papers and has given you this award, then again it becomes simpler for the following selection committee to also give you awards and so on. So again, in all these cases, what I'm trying to say is that don't go publish 15 journal papers and have nothing else to show in terms of the awards, in terms of the fellowships and so on. So try to publish 5 papers, get some prizes, awards, get a postdoc somewhere else, publish 5 more papers here, and then you have a better chance at getting faculty positions and so on. Similarly, if you are a typical young faculty and assistant professor, publish a few papers, maybe try to get a fellowship such as Humboldt Fellowship or Fulbright Fellowship, try to go on one of those summer visits to some top European university and work there. Write papers with people who are very big in the field, maybe top people in the field, and you will find that then these committees are more favorable toward you. Now, of course, it will take a lot of time to do all these things which I am telling you. For example, trying to apply for any of these fellowships requires writing research proposals, getting references, going to the interviews and so on, getting a visa also in many cases. So what this does is that this time actually reduces the number of journal papers you have, and therefore you become a more broad person. So I have heard of people being called one-dimensional vectors or unidirectional vectors if they have only journal papers. So again, do not become a unidirectional vector. So if you remember, vectors have 3 unit vector components, I, J and K in the X, Y and Z direction. Don't just go in the X direction and become a paper person. So remember, there is paper, there are the prizes, and then there are projects. So all these 3 issues you must look at. If you are a young faculty, then it becomes papers, projects and PhD students. So again, you need to make sure that all these different factors are there, and also take care of your teaching. Try to get some prizes in teaching, try to write a book if possible, or a book chapter. So all these things will actually reduce to some extent the size of your journal publication list, but it will actually enhance your CV, and it will also reduce the consternation which selection committee people see, or which selection committee people have when they see a CV which has a plethora of journal publications and not much else. And then these people essentially get down and essentially try to rip the CV into pieces by using their black hat thinking. And most faculty are very good in black hat thinking, so it's not something you want them to do on your particular CV. So these were some of my thoughts today about why you should not publish too much as a PhD student as well as a new PhD graduate, and instead leverage your publications to get something else like prizes, like postdocs, like book chapters and so on, and also to make your CV more multidimensional and not unidimensional and be labeled as a unidirectional vector. So I hope you enjoyed this video and stay tuned to my channel for more such videos. Thank you very much.